Okay, hello everybody, right here on the show called Where Are They Now? I got former Major League Baseball player, played in the league for 10 years, started off with the Los Angeles Dodgers, went to the Florida Marlins, at the time they were called the Florida Marlins, then played for the New York Mets, and then ended his career with the Washington Nationals. And before we get into what's he doing now with his life, let's turn back the clock. Here's my man, four-time All-Star catcher, Paul Lo Duca. How are you, buddy?
That's a great introduction, Eddie, man. I should hire you as either my ring announcer. I always had a good fight name, or at least you be my agent or my promoter anytime I walk into somewhere. That's not a bad introduction.
I just improvised that just now, you know. So listen, Paul, before we get into what you're doing now, I want to start off. Tell me, who introduced you to the game of baseball?
Well, having two older brothers and a father.
You grew up in Brooklyn just a little bit, right? You started off in Brooklyn?
Well, I grew up. I was moved when I was 3 years old to Arizona. My brothers were there. I have an older brother 10 years older than me. Another one's 6. So they were like 9 and 13 when they left. We used to go back every summer. My aunt and my uncle actually still live in the same home I was brought back to when I was born. So, and my cousins still live there, and so. When I went back to play for the Mets, it was really neat to go back to play for the team I loved, and growing up and being a Mets fan and being associated with that. So being an Italian from Brooklyn, but not from Brooklyn, I got a lot of love for it though. But tried to stay true,
Right. Now, here's another thing. When you started playing high school baseball for a coach named Ray Alonso, I actually talked to him earlier this morning.
You got good connections, Eddie, man.
Hey, you know what? You got to hustle, my man. You got to hustle. And tell me, in high school baseball, you weren't a standout. I mean, you were, according to Ray, but every time he would talk to scouts and colleges to try to get you somewhere, they would say, well, he doesn't have a body. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. How tall are you, Paul?
Are we going with spikes on or spikes off?
Spikes off, all right?
Spikes off. I mean, every spring training, I used to, you take off your shoes and you do the height and the weight for your physical. And I used to tell the nurse, please just put 5'9" for me. I'm 5'8" and, about 3/4. So I'll give myself that 3/4. But yeah, you're right. Wow. Eddie, you live in a world now it's even worse than it used to be. And I'm a kid that, I'm not a kid anymore, but I graduated high school in the 90s. So, and size was an issue then. So yeah, I was a guy that didn't have a position, a small guy at 5'8", and I think a lot of scouts were thinking, okay, the kid can hit, but it's not going to translate to the next level, and then to the next level after that. So I took the approach of going to the junior college ranks.
Right. So another thing about the junior college, you actually went to Glendale Community College. You put out, outstanding numbers. But before we get to that, one time you hit a home run, and once you cross the plate, you come in the dugout, your coach, Ray Alonso, says, hey, why are you showing up with the other team? And actually, you weren't showing up. What were you doing exactly when you kept pointing the right field line?
Well, my mother, she was one of those mothers that had issues with fans that would get on their son. I mean, true story. University of Arizona. I went to Arizona State, and we're playing the University of Arizona, and she got in a fight with a fan that was ragging me the whole way out. The bus was way down on the left field line, and we had gotten beaten in a tough game, and it ended up getting to the point where people would rag on me, and she couldn't take it, and she tried to fight people. So what she would do was sit farthest away in her lounge chair, with her hat on and her sunglasses, away from everybody. And I always used to point at her if I hit a home run or did something and always gave her a kiss before every game. So she was my good luck charm, and she was my hitting coach. You got to understand.
She's your hitting coach.
Yeah, my father worked 2 jobs, and I learned baseball from my father and my brothers. But my mother took me to my batting cage, and she did batting cage almost every day, or took me out in the lawn and threw me whatever I needed to do to get ready to play. And so she knew my swing the best, and she could look at me after a game and tell me what was the matter. She was my ultimate hitting coach.
So you're telling me she was your best batting instructor?
100%. 100%. Wow. Because you know what? When you get to a level of um, you're getting to high school and you're starting to think, hey, man, I got somewhat of a chance to play at a collegiate level. Hey, I was a kid that looked at it as, hey, I can get school paid for,
Right,
that was
right.
my thought. I mean, you always dream you're going to go to the big leagues. Every kid does,
Well, I
but
did too. Yeah.
yeah, you go step by step, and when you get to the higher the level you get, you end up finding out, hey, these guys are better than you, just as good as you, and then it goes to here. And that was the one thing my mother always kept me straight on. When I was on a baseball field, I might act crazy. I might have thrown a lot of stuff, get thrown out of games, but my mind knew exactly what was going on 5 outs in advance or 5 outs before, because I just, I was trained, not trained, but my mother always had my mind in the right place when I was on the baseball field.
Well, you know what? You had an excellent mom. I have to give you that. So now in Arizona State, okay, now check this out. Besides Glendale Community College, how many times you heard in high school, you'll never make it, man. You're too short. You'll never make it. You'll never make it. How many times you heard that? And what made you be so mentally strong and say to yourself, you know what? I don't care what these people say about me. I am going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
What kept you going on that? What was your motivation?
What you're saying. Think about it, man. I mean, you're doing what you're doing right now. How many times have you said since you've been out here in LA that you can't do this? I mean,
Yeah. Right.
a zillion times. I mean, so it's just like anything else, that fuels you, 100% fuels you. Jim Brock, the late Jim Brock, who was a legendary coach at Arizona State, came to my household. I got a couple offers after my junior college, small schools, a couple of NAIA. One Division I school was interested in me, Ole Miss, but it was more on, come here. And Coach Brock was very honest with me. He said, I don't have a scholarship for you, but I really love your family. And he sat down with my family, ate with my family. He's like, you want to come out and walk on? We'll have a spot for you. And I remember looking at my mother and telling my mother, listen, I mean, that was at the time where there was no baseball in Arizona. So ODB McDowell, Barry Bonds. I mean, I was 12, 13 years old when those guys were at Arizona State. So you went to watch those guys. They were the real deal. And it was a program that was amazing. So my exact words to my mother were, I might as well go to the best. If I can walk on and go to the best and conquer that, then I know I'm good enough to go to the next level. Because I think at that time, Eddie, to be honest with you, I was a junior college and I was good, but I didn't really know if I had what it took to go through the big leagues or the minor league level and that stuff.
So now this next question is sponsored by Malibu Clothes. Get your suits right here in Beverly Hills at the Malibu Clothes building right here. All right, how I look, by
They
the
did a
way.
good job on you.
In Arizona State, check this out. These stats are ridiculous. I can't believe what you did out there. You actually hit 446, all right? That is the single season batting average record. Also, you set another record, which is 129 hits, and you broke some guy's record. His name is Hubie Brooks. And on top of that, you had a 37-game hitting streak.
1993 was an unreal year.
Now check this out. Speaking of 1993 year, I want my viewers to actually understand what's going on. 1993, 10 guys got drafted out of Arizona State that year. I think there was a third or fifth rounder there. None of them made it to the major leagues, except, who am I talking to?
You. It was a good team. It was a great place to go. And like I said, Coach Brock gave me the opportunity that he said, and I had an amazing year. And just I turned the corner physically. I was 5'2" my freshman year in high school. So
Oh my God.
it just took me a while, and I encourage a lot of kids. I go see a lot of kids that want to go to Division I out of high school, and the junior college I grew in junior college. I mean, listen, you're sitting on the bench in Division I, it does you no good. I played in a very good league in the JUCO league, Arizona JUCO, and then 1993, just everything blossomed for me. And the crazy part was, it still didn't matter. I bet I was a Sporting News Player of the Year that year, which is basically the Heisman. They have that and the Golden Spikes,
Right.
and I still didn't get drafted. And probably those 10 guys that got drafted, if you probably research, got drafted before me because of my size. And
Right.
in those days, too, now the aluminum bat was a lot more juice than it is now. So it
Was
was.
it the -5s? Because I use
Yeah,
those.
well, no, I wasn't the -5s. I was -3s. I was before the -5s. I'm dating myself, but
Right.
still, they had a little bit more zing. So it was. You got to understand, we didn't pick up. I didn't ever picked up a wooden bat. These kids now pick up wooden bats and got their own wooden bats at 12 and 13. So it was a big adjustment, after that year, 1993. But to be part of that and to have those records with the guys that have gone there and have become friends with Barry.
These are big names.
Dustin Pedroia. I mean, a lot of the guys, Andre. Me and Andre
Willie Bloomquist, I think he went there.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and Tim Esme, who's now the head coach there, was there when I was there, or before me, and was on that World Series team. And they have the Arizona State Sun Devils going in the right direction, and something I always cherish. I grew up a Sun Devil, always will be one.
Yeah. Now, when you got drafted in 1993 in the 25th round.
You want to know where I signed?
How much did you sign for? I want the price.
I got signed by Eddie Bain, who was a cross checker or a head scout for the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Bain number is also retired on the outfield fence at Arizona State. So he used to go to Arizona State games all the time, and he was the guy that you looked up to. I played with his son Jamie, and I signed at a Denny's. I'll never forget my mother. My mother was there. She was my agent. I signed for $25,000 in school. It was really disappointing. I had felt
25,000 they gave you.
Yeah, 25,000 in school, and I think I went and bought a Camaro, a white Camaro. That thing was banging, man. White Camaro. I think I even got the. You know what? I'm not lying. Remember when they used to make the Velcro thing for the top?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Italian. I might have had the Italian horn hanging.
Oh my God!
No. But and I signed it at Denny's. True story. And I actually was going back to school because I thought I was going to get drafted a lot lower, and it just didn't happen. And then I was going to go back to school, and I remember my mother telling me, "Listen, it's just another obstacle. They don't believe in it again. It's just more fuel. And why are you going to go back to school if you can't do anything that you didn't do last year as a player?" So I signed, and I almost went back to school. I signed late, but I used that 21,000 not wisely buying that Camaro.
So now check this out. You get signed, okay? Now I did a little research. In 1993, the Dodgers had drafted 58 ball players that year, your year. How many do you think out of those 58 made it to the major leagues? Give me a ballpark guess. What do you think?
Wow, that's a good question. I know Darren Dreifert's one of those because he was drafted before me.
All right, here's the stat. 7 made it. All the catchers that they drafted, 5 catchers that they drafted, 3 ahead of you never made it. None of the catchers made it. 7 made it, but the guys that played, been in the league for a while, was Dreifert, you, and I think this Doug something I saw. And then the rest of the guys just averaged, they only played 15 to 20 games. That's it.
Really? It's crazy. Yeah, I mean it's
and this is how much I admire guys like you. 5'9", hearing it in high school, your son's never gonna make it. You're not gonna make it. And look what you have accomplished. That's being mentally strong. I gotta say this. I mean that's just unbelievable.
Well, you have to have that tune-out factor. I think you get it a lot, and I think a lot of people. When I played, I think a lot of people always just say, "Hey, man, I was yelling at you from the third row. Why don't you say hi?" I'm like, bro, this ain't vacation, man. I mean, if I strike out right here with the bases loaded, my name's going to be on the front of the post or something's going to be, that's just the bottom line. That's the way I took things. And I took it that way. And there's many times when I was in the minor leagues. I was in the minor leagues for a long time.
Now, here's my question about the minor leagues. Hold on, Paul. I'm going to get you this one, all right? You're averaging 6 home runs a year in the minor leagues, okay? You got a guy in the big league Dodgers named Mike Piazza averaging 30 to 40 home runs a year. Now, be honest with me with this. Have you ever doubted yourself, man, this guy Piazza's crushing the baseball. How am I going to make the big league team? Did you ever ask yourself that?
Well, many times, yeah. I mean, when I signed in 93, they sort of had me as a catcher. They did, and I played a little first. I played other positions. 1994, I actually played first base the whole year. '95, I didn't really play, got hurt. And then 1996 is when, Mike Scioscia pulled me aside and was like, listen, you're either going to be a full-time catcher or not. And that was a reality check for me. I had to go back to A-ball. 1994, I had a really good year. But yeah, I mean, we had a ton of catchers in our organization at one time too, as well. So to have a guy like Mike, yeah, I'll never forget. And it was either Mike got traded. I want to say it was '98 or '99 when he got traded. I was in AAA and I was playing really well. And I'll never forget. I got a phone call from my father, and I got woken up in the middle of the night. He's like, "What, are you watching SportsCenter? Congratulations! You're going to the big leagues. Piazza got traded, the whole 9 yards." And I'll never forget, my agent called me literally 30 seconds later and said, "They just traded for Charles Johnson." I said, "All right, good night." I hung up the phone and went back to bed like 15 seconds later. So I had to go through Mike, Charles Johnson. They didn't give me an opportunity. And then in 2000, I got sent back down and actually got sent down to be a backup. In 1999, I made the team at spring training, and Hundley was the starter. They signed Todd Hundley. And they just didn't really give me an opportunity to play every day. And in 2000, I literally almost hung him up.
You literally almost you telling me you were about to quit?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Wow.
what people don't get is that, if you're not a first round pick or if you're not a bonus baby, it's not a luxurious lifestyle.
I
At
totally
that time, I'm 28 years old in AAA. You're making, whatever you're making a month. You're living with 2 or 3 other roommates. You're a 28-year-old man. So it's different. A lot of the guys that are there, a lot of the guys that are in AA and AAA, they live paycheck to paycheck. And some guys, that are 26, 27, that don't have the family support that I did, hang them up. I mean, I played with a guy named Brouchard, who was my roommate. The guy hit 350 in AA and hung him up after he hit 350 because he had a wife at home and kids, and you got to get a regular job. It's a 6-month job. Some teams only give you $4,000 or $5,000 a month. You do get benefits, but so yeah, I almost hung him up in 2000. I'll never forget. My father pulled me aside and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I'm watching you on the field, and you're not in it. Either you want to come back home and work at a restaurant, or what are you going to do? You're going to go back to school?" And he says, "I think you need to take the approach of make them take the shirt off your back approach." And that's what I did. And lo and behold, 3 days later, the catcher got hurt. I got a break. And
speaking of your parents, this is the best compliment. When you guys used to come to play against the Diamondbacks, and you got Ray Alonso, your high school coach, on the field, and he would go up to Manny Mota at the time and say, "Oh, Manny, I really appreciate what you did and this and that," give him praise. And next thing you know, Manny Moto's like, "Well, who the hell are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Paul Lo Duca's high school baseball coach." "Oh, wow, you did a great job. He knows the game, this and that." And you know what he did, Ray? He says, "Don't thank me. Thank his parents." So your parents were really there for you, Paul. There's something, how other people have family problems and all that. Your family was tight with you like crazy glue.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
that's awesome.
A story I rarely tell is, and it's true, was so 1996. Scioscia made me a catcher, and I had a really great year. Like, my offense completely went down because I wasn't catching every day, but I worked so hard defensively. To me, 1996 was my proudest year. I was defensive catcher of the year in the Florida State League, my first year catching, and I just took so much pride in that. And what ended up happening was the Arizona Fall League, a couple guys had gotten hurt, and the Arizona Fall League was giant. Every prospect you can imagine has gone through the Fall League, and I lived there, and I wasn't, really getting the opportunity to move up the ladder. And what ended up happening, a couple guys got hurt. I got offered to go play in the Arizona Fall League. Next thing you know, starting catcher goes down, other catcher goes down. I was a 4th catcher.
Wow.
I ended up playing every day, and my mom was very sick, and she had a cancer at the time.
Oh,
and
sorry.
Yeah, and I was going off. I mean, I was leading the league in hitting, and it was like the Dodgers had sort of said, "Oh my God, he's on the radar." And my mom was basically on her deathbed, and I went in to go talk to her, and I had told the Dodgers I was going to stop. My mom wasn't feeling well, and they understood that, the whole 9 yards. And my mom looked at me, and just knew the importance of this opportunity, and she just goes, "Listen, I want you to come to my funeral, and I want you to play the next day." I'm like, "Mom, I'm not going to do that." She goes, "That's what I want." And that's what I did. And I think a lot of people were amazed that I went and played, but that's what she wanted. And then I ended up leading the Arizona Fall League in hitting. And after that year, I got put on the 40-man. And it's the reason why I was in the big league. So,
wow, yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of being a catcher, how often you setting up on the outside corner, do umpires sometimes give you an inch or two away if the pitcher's consistently throwing out there? Like a Tom Glavine type of pitcher, the lefty just make a living off the outside corner all day?
Yeah, well, he's the perfect example. I mean, we used to he could set it up there for you. I mean, so I would always start 3 to 4 inches on either side, whichever we knew. Tommy would know the pitcher or the umpire too. Tommy would go, "Hey, we got Joe West or somebody else behind the plate, Bob Davidson. He gives me this. Hey, this guy will give me more on this side of the plate than the other." Because you got to understand, for a lot of people that don't understand, some umpires will sit behind this shoulder. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're going to see this pitch a lot better on the inner half to a righty. On the outer half to the right to a righty, they're reading on me. So if I creep a little and it sees the center of the body, they're seeing from over here, oh, it hit the center of the body, it's a strike. They can see it a lot better here. Versa, other umpires are on this side. So there's a little bit to go with that. Very few guys like Tom Glavine that can spot it, but Tommy was the perfect example. If I was getting 3 to 4 inches in the first inning, the game was over. I knew we were going to win the ball game.
Because he would stay there. He would stay there all day, right?
All day. And expand it more. Because if you get that 3 inches, that's now a strike. Now that pitch is 6 inches is even more enticing to the hitter, and it's impossible to put in play.
What'd you learn from Gary Carter?
Well, Gary, I mean, he was such a winner. He was only very sparingly in spring training for the Mets when I was there. He was there for one of the years I was there. But Gary the one thing I liked about Gary, and the same thing about Mike that I loved, I think a lot of catching coordinators, and I think a lot of coaches you see now, they try to mold a kid or mold somebody into a certain way, where Gary and Mike were just let me do my own. I was very unconventional. I used a very big glove. I scooped a lot of balls. But that was my advantage. I had very good hands, so I took advantage of that, and I had quicker feet. I didn't have a great arm, but I had a quick release. So Gary and Mike never tried to change me.
You don't forget where you came from. And I was talking to your high school coach. We talked for like an hour and a half this morning. He told me that you would always come back, and they had baseball camps, and there's a story you brought Dontrell Willis, and he said that he offered to pay Dontrell, and Dontrell's like, "Nah, man, no way, man. Paul had me coming out here. I love Paul, so everybody, they love you, man." And so tell me about that. Giving back to the community. How important is that?
Well, it's huge. I mean, I was a big guy in the community when I was with the Dodgers and Mets, and always loved doing it. And supported the Children's Hospital for so many years, and a lot of the cancer foundations, through my mother, obviously, and what she went through. But yeah, I did a lot of camps in Arizona. We had the Brooklyn Polys camps, my father, my brothers, and a lot of the area coaches, my junior college coach, Dave Grant, Ray Alonzo, obviously my high school coach. We used to get a lot of the area coaches out as well. And yeah, Dontrell came down and signed autographs. What a great guy, man. And we had home run derby. Me and him, I think he beat me too. A lot of people know, man, that guy could rake, he could hit.
He could hit, I remember. He could hit.
Yeah, he was a sick athlete, and Dontrell had a lot of nerve issues in his elbow, and I heard he was trying to come back, and I hope he's doing better. And he had family out in Arizona, so he used to come out as well, and he'd come out to the camp, and I had Eric Gagne come out there 1 year as well. I always had a guest for the kids, and I would always play in the games. I always felt, to me, whenever I went to camp as a kid, it was so cool when the guys played, man. You looked up to those guys, even if they're high school guys, man. When you're 9 to 10, you're looking up to those guys. You want to be high school first, and then you look up to the guys in the big leagues, obviously. But so I go out there and play with the kids and love it, have a good time, pitch. I'm sore for like 4 days after, but
it's not the same, huh?
I love it. Yeah.
So now, Mariano Rivera is retiring this year. How nasty is this cutter? Did you ever face him?
Yeah, I faced Mariano about 5 times. It was nasty. I mean,
How does it look like from your angle? Let's say it's coming in on you. Next thing you know, it just tails away, or it comes down the middle and it goes back in. I mean, how does he do it? One pitch.
well, that's the thing. I think it does so many things. When he can get underneath it, it sort of upshoots. When he gets around it, it will go this way. He can make it do a lot of different things. And um, I had a okay. I think I was 2 for 5 or 2 for 6 off him, but I didn't face him that many times. He was okay on right-handers, a guy for me. And I was a good fastball hitter, so he was okay. But lefties. I mean, I remember Sean Green used to tell me he used to hate it. I mean, he hated it because it's coming in there, and it's going to be in your kitchen, and it's hard to lay off. But I mean, it could move sometimes as far as that, and if you get it in some dry air, I mean, it's 95. I've always been vocal, not being a Yankee fan, and I mess around with the Yankee people.
Hey, now you know I'm a diehard Yankee fan, but
Yeah, I
you can
know.
yell
And,
at me. You go
I
ahead.
love, I love Derek. Derek has always been respectful, and so has Mo. Every All-Star game I went to, Mo's been one of the classiest guys you ever meet. Him and Derek both, and I wish Mo well in retirement. I don't know if it's going to happen, but the best
Well,
ever.
you think he'll continue?
He's so well liked,
Yeah.
and it's just like he's gonna go out and he's gonna go out on top. It don't matter what kind of year he has. He's the best ever, and he handled it with such class. You can tell about like all the gifts that he's gotten this year. So
Let's talk about where are they now. Okay, so we talked about your journey. What are you doing with your life now? And how'd you get involved with this? Because this is like a U-turn, a complete U-turn. Okay, go ahead, talk to me.
well, a lot of people know me. Know I'm into horse racing. I owned horses when I played. It was misinformed by the New York Post that I was doing this and that. But I've done foundation stuff for retired thoroughbred fund foundations. Actually, was down at Del Mar for the last 2 months in San Diego. I did a bunch of charity functions down here as well. And I work for a network called TVG, which is a horse racing network. I'm an analyst. I analyze horse racing. I love it. My first job was at the racetrack. I used to go to the racetrack with my father. My father owned horses as well. So I'm in the booth now, and it's really crazy. I've done some Little League stuff for ESPN. I'm also did a lot of the ESPN college baseball stuff last season as well. And it's crazy doing it from a lot of people always ask you. The game does get a little easier sitting in the stands because now I watch baseball games. I'm like, man, I would have swung at that, or man, I would have. But it really isn't that easy. But yeah, the transfer to horse racing, everybody always asks me, like, how did that happen, or where did that happen? It's just was a passion of mine, and it was a way for me to get into broadcasting, and it's a love of mine.
So you're telling me that if I want to gamble on a horse right now, legitimately, should come to you and say, hey, Paul, tell me if I should pick this horse.
Yes, I am actually considered a professional handicapper. So
wow.
So on TVG, and yeah, I focused on certain racetracks, obviously out here in California, or when they go to Lexington and Keeneland, which is the creme de la cremes in Kentucky and Lexington. So it's horse country, and it's always beautiful to go there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I enjoy it. It's like a passion of mine. And do I want to get back on the baseball field? Of course. I mean, I will eventually. Yeah.
Well, what will happen?
For a little while.
What will happen if one of the organizations said, "Hey, Paul, we want you back, but you're going to start off in the minor leagues." And I'll tell you right now, you've been in the minor leagues. Those 14-hour bus rides, they're long.
Yeah.
They're long. You're not flying out there. So would you accept that?
Definitely considered it.
Wow.
For that. I have. You have to start somewhere. I mean, I'm not expecting a team to call me up and say you're going to be the manager of the big leagues or be a coach in the big leagues. I understand.
But you know what? You're a catcher and you know a lot. You're a catcher and you know a lot.
I know the game, and I really feel, and listen, I'm not Tim Horn. I really feel I would be a great manager. It's something I've always wanted to do, something I think that's sort of in my blood. I feel like I can relate to players. I think what ends up happening now, we're in the point in life where, listen, the players make more than the managers. So to me, it's not so much you need to manage the game on the field, but you need to manage these guys off the field, because the way social media is now, and believe me, I did plenty of my stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I'm not proud of, and a lot of stuff that was written about me was completely false, but it happens, and it's even happening more now. And I think you need to shield your players away, and you need players that respect you. And that's the big thing. If you can get your players respect, you're going to be able to be a winning manager now. It's totally different than when it used to be. You can't push these guys to something they don't want because their money's guaranteed. They're still going to get their paycheck. So you got to be able to have that happy median of somewhat being a father and a friend. You got to understand, too, 160 games plus spring training, you're spending more time with your baseball family than you are your regular family, bottom line.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is the last question. If there was a biography about you, a movie played about Paul Lo Duca, let's say the name of the title, Paul Lo Duca's story, from growing up to now, which actor do you want to play you?
Well, I mean, the obvious choice is DeVito, right? So we might as well go with that. But
I mean, he can't catch, can he?
Yeah, right. We need somebody that's got some skills. Well, Danny might have some skills. Let me see.
All right, Danny DeVito, you're listening to this? He's picking you, my man. Oh, man.
I got too much every day. I love Danny. That's a good question. That's a good question.
If De Niro was a little younger?
Yeah, De Niro. You gotta go. Maybe De Niro, Raging Bull style. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Great movie. Joe Pesci, big horse racing guy as well. He's got a couple horses. Actually, he's got one named Pesci as well. So those are probably three pretty good candidates. Got to go with the Italians, right?
Well, yeah, I hear you. I mean, look at the look right there.
Yeah.